What if I told you there's a country of over 285 million people where Hollywood is losing, where local filmmakers have flipped the script on the world's most powerful entertainment industry in less than a decade, where a box office that barely existed 5 or 6 years ago is now nearly worth $400 million a year and growing at 10% annually? This is Indonesia, and this is the most exciting growth story in global cinema right now. Hello and welcome. My name is Bhaskar, and this channel exists to pull back the curtain on the global film industry. I examine film through three lenses: the business behind it, the content within it, and the audience behavior that drives it all. If you want to understand film at a deeper level, you are in the right place. Now let's dive into examining how Indonesian cinema rose above many film markets in recent years. Let's rewind to understand just how dramatic this turnaround really is. For most of cinema's history, Indonesia followed a familiar pattern. Hollywood dominated. Local films existed, but they were outgunned, outbudgeted, and outmarketed by the global machine. As recently as the early 2010s, imported titles drew roughly double the audience of domestic productions. If you went to the cinema in Jakarta, you were probably watching something that was made in Los Angeles. But here's what makes Indonesia different from almost every other emerging market. The audience didn't just grow, it changed sides. By 2024, Indonesian local films were drawing 30 to 40 million admissions per year. Hollywood imports, just 20 to 25 million. That is a complete structural reversal, and the money followed. Indonesia's total box office went from under $75 million in 2020, in the depths of COVID, to $392 million in 2024. That's nearly a five-fold increase in just 4 years. In that time, Indonesia's cinema overtook Taiwan, overtook Hong Kong, overtook Thailand. And this wasn't a fluke. Indonesian local films now command 65% of national box office market share. Compare that to Germany at around 25%, the UK at around 15%, even France, which has famously strong protections to its film industry, only hit 44% domestic market share in 2024, its best result since 2008. Indonesia got there organically, so how did they do it? The answer starts with a genre that Indonesians had always loved: horror. Post-pandemic, Indonesian horror exploded. Producers began releasing dozens of horror films per year, many of them blending scares with comedy or drama in a way that felt distinctly, unmistakably Indonesian. Half of the top 10 highest grossing Indonesian films of all time are horror titles. Films like KKN Di Desa Penari, which translates to Practical Work in the Dancing Village, pulled in 10 million admissions. That's not just a hit, that's a cultural phenomenon. The formula worked because it was rooted in local mythology, local fears, and local humor. These weren't Indonesian versions of American horror. They were something audiences had not seen before because they could only have come from here. But success in one genre always risks saturation, and that's exactly what happened. By 2025, the horror cycle was showing signs of straying. Too many films, too similar, diminishing returns. But rather than collapsing, the Indonesian industry did something more interesting. It diversified. Drama came back. Family films found their footing. Comedy dramas like Agak Lane and Soar became crossover hits, proving that Indonesian audiences would show up for quality storytelling in any genre, not just scares. At the same time, animation entered the picture. Studio Cinema, the company behind some of Indonesia's biggest hits, began pushing an IP-first strategy, building animated franchises designed to travel globally. Jumbo, an Indonesian animated feature, became a case study in what's possible when local studios think beyond the domestic market. The industry was no longer riding a single wave. It was building an ecosystem. Here's something that tells you everything about where Indonesia is in its story. Until 2024, Indonesia, the fourth most populous nation on earth, had never had a film market. No dedicated industry event, no structural platform for buyers, producers, distributors, and investors to meet. That changed with the launch of JAF, which has since become the most influential film festival in the country. In its very first edition, it attracted visitors from 18 countries. By its second year, it had generated $7.8 million in economic impact. hosted over 1,500 accredited industry professionals, and facilitated more than 2,400 one-on-one meetings. Variety magazine began publishing annual lists of Indonesian films to watch. International sales agents started picking up Indonesian titles for global distribution. The infrastructure of a serious industry was being built in real time. Now, here's the most important number in the whole story. Indonesia's per capita cinema audience is less than 0.5 visits per year. For comparison, South Korea, often held up as Asia's cinema success story, averages about 3 visits per person per year. That means Indonesia, with all its growth, with its 65% market share, with its $400 million box office, is still operating well below its potential. There are currently around 2,200 cinema screens in the country. Projections put that to 2,700 by 2030, with most of the expansion targeting smaller cities where cinema culture is still developing. The urban middle class in Jakarta and Surabaya are already going to the movies. The rest of the country is just getting started. And increasingly, Indonesian cinema isn't just looking inward. In 2026, an Indonesian action thriller called Queen of Malacca had international sales locked in ahead of the Cannes market, the most important film sales event in the world. At JAF Market, Variety handpicked 12 Indonesian films poised to break out internationally, spanning prestige literary adaptations, auteur dramas, family tentpoles, and genre films. Directors whose work has shown at Locarno, Rotterdam, co-productions with Singapore, South Korea, and beyond. The conversation had shifted. It's no longer can Indonesian cinema compete globally, it is when. South Korea took 2 decades to build an industry that could produce Parasite. China needed a decade of explosive growth and is now navigating the complexities of what comes after. Indonesia is at the beginning of that arc. The momentum is real, the market is enormous, the local talent is proven, and the infrastructure is finally catching up. The most interesting and emerging film market in the world right now belongs to Indonesia. It's a country of 285 million people in Southeast Asia where filmmakers are telling stories that only they could tell, and audiences can't get enough. Indonesia's cinematic revolution is already underway, and we're only in the opening scene. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into movies. And let me know in the comment section, will Indonesia fulfill its potential within the next 5 years? I will be back with another video soon. Until then, it's bye from Box Office Bhaskar.